when Donnie called me, you had just done Donnie that day or something?
Yes. We got to do his at the NFR.
Oh, okay.
So whenever I go out there for my booth, I have a Airbnb, and so we record out there.
Oh, okay.
Also.
Right.
Yes, sir. So
Donnie, when I was a kid, 1977, my senior year of high school, we snuck in the Cow Palace. I watched Donnie ride Oscar. I watched Wick win the first bullfighting, the U.S. Cowboy Bullfighting Championship at the Cow Palace that year.
Really?
Yeah, and that's where the idea. Wick won it that year. I won it my rookie year, 1978, and I won the deal at the Cow Palace. And then that's where the idea of the Wrangler bullfights came about, and they went on from there.
Really?
Yeah, Miles Hare and Skipper and David Allen, and Jim Sutton and his wife, they all got together, and then the first Wrangler bullfight was put on in Rapid City, South Dakota.
Oh yeah, because that's where the Suttons are.
That's where the Suttons are, and that's where it's got its initial start. And then
what year was that?
1980. They did a bullfight in 1980. Then the year we crowned our first world champion was 1981. Miles won the world in 81. I win second.
Who all was fighting in it that year?
Back then would have been Miles, Rex, me, David Burnham, Rick Young, Bob Donaldson, Wick, Skipper, Steve Mowry.
Was Chapman around then?
Chapman was in there. Chapman and Rex, David Burnham, Miles Hare, Jimmy Anderson.
Dang, a bunch of guys.
There were some studs. I mean, it was a heck of a match. And then so Miles won it the first year, and then Skipper won it. Skipper won it in 82, and then I won my first Wrangler one in 83.
What were those bulls like at the first ones?
Harry, well, it wasn't just Mexicans. Like Servy had a bunch of those Sloan Williams brindles that he packed.
Oh, from day one there was crossbreds.
So it was a whole bunch of crossbreds.
Dang.
You know, and then Harry's was a mixture of the original Purple People Eater, which was a big Bramer bull that the color of crooked nose, but he was like 1,800 pounds, and Harry would only take him to about 4 or 5 rodeos a year that had real good fencing because the bull was bad about jumping out. Mm-hmm. And so he got that group of calves out of him, 141 and 111 and B47. And there was a bunch of those calves that came out of him. And then, you know, Harry had his A team. And then all of a sudden, Cotton started getting interested in putting on some more bullfights too. He got in with the Borbas from Escalon there. And then that's when the Mexican fighting bulls started coming in. The Borbas, they had a...
What year did they start showing up?
Well, they were there 83, 84. They started coming in the early 80s also. And then Cotton, not Cotton, the Borbas had a dairy. Well, those bulls of theirs got fed corn silage year round. So their bulls were so much bigger than everybody else's just because of every time they went down through there feeding cows, that truck made a pass down through, and they had irrigated pasture. I mean, they were on top quality feed, and the bulls fought.
Gosh.
And they're bred for it, you know.
So the Wrangler bullfights were that rank from day one.
Oh, the Wrangler, yes. And then, just like the Mexican fighting bulls,
there's
a reason that they kill them in Mexico. They're not a dumb animal. That's why they only fight them once down there, and they don't walk out of that arena.
Right.
Because, the matador is not going to fight one that somebody else has fought already. And so he learns your trick, he learns my trick, he learns Miles's trick, he learns Skipper's trick. Pretty soon it's like climbing in the ring with Muhammad Ali.
Right. And they're not tipped.
down there they're not, but
right,
up here, the Borbas were good about tipping bulls, but their bulls start getting, you start putting 9-10 trips on a bull in a year. Pretty soon,
that's a smart rascal.
Like Crooked Nose. Crooked Nose had well over 150 trips.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Golly.
yeah,
That's crazy to think about.
yeah.
You know, because I mean, I feel like bucking bulls maybe get smart somehow
Sure.
to like maybe they'll
They get a pattern and they feel what works, and
but a bull a fighting bull getting smart seems much scarier.
yeah.
Man. Yeah, the level of thought that goes behind, you know, a bull's action. You know, years ago I was with Cody Webster, and he was talking about after he and I fought this bull, and the bull hooked me and didn't hook him. Surprise, surprise. But we went back there, and he was saying this bull, and you could tell that bull had a favored side, and there was one horn that was crazy. Not crazy, but once you noticed it, it was a large amount more rubbed down than the other horn. And Webb said he had observed that, and it was that bull kind of was like maybe right-handed or right-horned.
There you go. And you'll notice the Mexican matadors, when those bulls hit the bull ring, they're watching that bull, and they're, you know, as the guy's out there kind of trying to draw him to him just so that they can watch how he moves a little bit, that they're reaching. They reach with that right horn. That's because they're pretty right-handed. They're predominantly stronger that way. So the best thing to do is to hop that way, throw that fake that way, because he's going to probably bite there because he wants to hit you with that one, and then back that other way.
My dad, the only time I had like observed something like that, it was a much more obvious observation, but my dad had a bull that we fought all summer at rodeos named Hector, and he had about a 12-inch horn on his right and a 4-inch horn on his left. So you can only guess which way I chose to go.
Everybody
every time.
tries to, and it's the same with Crooked Nose. And then Crooked Nose got so bad he was so good about protecting the muley side that you could see, boy, them guys would all start there, and he's got that shoulder. He's way over here. He'd whack them guys in the middle of the back with that right horn because he knew how to get across there and protect it.
Was there that much of a science? I guess, did the Wrangler bullfights bring on more study for you guys? Did you guys begin to study it more with the Wrangler bullfights, or was there already that sort of thought that went behind bullfighting prior to the Wrangler bullfights?
I guess when I came on, like, I was really blessed to come in the shadows of Wick, Skipper Voss.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Skipper's the man that made the step-through move. Wick was, as far as I'm concerned, Wick was is and always will be the king.
Mm.
Skipper, where Wick did it on toughness and was the first man to ever command a price for not being funny, for taking care of guys.
Mm-hmm.
Skipper's the man that made an art form out of it and made the step through and turned it into some beauty, you know. And then along the ways, like I said, me coming in there in 78, well, then I also got to work with Miles, Jimmy Anderson, nobody tougher than Jungle Jimmy. And those four guys basically spoke into me, you know, and Miles and I can remember us, even though all of us competing against each other, and yet we would get in there and get on a video and start watching. And instead of making a monster out of something, Crooked Nose, whatever, they're hooking guys because somebody's making a mistake. Now, where is the mistake?
So, but when they're hooking guys, are we talking about just like when you're selling the rodeo, or were there a large number of competitions?
Well, by then it was getting to the competitions. We were you know, 1978, I won the Cow Palace, but 79, 80, things are just getting off the ground. But 1981, we have our first full Wrangler tour. And so we're watching videos and we'd get somebody, that was back with the old VHSs. Mm-hmm. So we'd get somebody with the big old camera to video us, and then we could go right from after it was over to the room, plug it in, and let's watch what watch what happened. You know, you could see where your mistakes were. You could see where the good things were. And
So you guys had events. The Wrangler Bullfights just made it more of a league, of an association, and put some balance. I mean, structure to it.
right. And so we would go to Fort Smith was a big one. Rapid City was a big one. Right off the bat, that's where they kind of first started, I believe. Well, Rapid City was the first. Fort Smith was the second. 1981, Odessa had one. You know, and then they started the tours, just basically kept growing and growing. And we had like 10 events that we would go to that first year. And then it just kept growing. Pretty soon we had the last year, not the last year, but in 1988, Miles and I ended up tied for the world championship. And it was after 36 go rounds of fighting bulls. So basically 9 rodeos. And you know, Billings, Montana had a great big bullfight. Minot, North Dakota, Bismarck. You know, where Harry Vole rodeos were and Crooked Nose and that A team there, they had a bunch out on the West Coast, Santa Maria, Reno, Borba, Salinas. Borbas had those bulls out there. And then Servy, you know, Denver, San Antonio. You know, his big rodeos there that Servy had all those great big Sloan Williams bulls in Omaha. He had some big, scary brindles that weighed anywhere from 1,500 to 1,800 pounds and horns as long as your legs. And
golly. What did those Wrangler bullfights in the 80s, what did that do for bullfighters across the board, like even at rodeos? Because now I do observe, you know, like even today, there is, I mean, there's a lot of guys that are just super aggressive with their bullfighting. And you know, they go to freestyles and they fight one after. And then there's some guys that are less aggressive and they really just want to, you know, fight the rodeo. What was that mentality changing during that time, or what was that? Was that a two different mindsets in bullfighting during the 80s?
I think that in the 80s, the bullfighting was looked at it a different way. Like you didn't go to Fort Worth for Neil Gay and make one pass and think that the gate was going to go open and they were done with the fighting bull. Huh? You're going to go do something to sell it to the crowd at Fort Worth, or Neil wasn't opening the gate and he'd make you look like a fool.
Yeah.
You know, I can remember one year Miles and I work in Fort Worth, and the last performance, and Miles runs and jumps snake eyes off the ground just as clean and pretty as you could see, and gets to throw his hat in the air. And I think, oh yeah, we're out of here. And Neil looks at me and goes,
"Your turn."
Huh? There's no we're done here yet, son. Huh? And I'm like, really? You know, and those, needless to say, that year, I think there was 24 performances. And between Miles and I, we jumped 19 bulls in 24 performances.
Golly.
Either off the ground or over the barrel. Like Miles would set the barrel and I'd go over them that way. And, you know, probably two of the best guys I have ever seen in my career as far as jumping bulls off the ground would be Miles Hare and Donnie Sparks. I think as far as just going one head on and bailing to them, those two guys got off the ground great.
Jumping bulls isn't new.
No. Well, heck, goes all the way back. I think Junior Meeks kind of gets the tip of the hat for the guy that most consistently jumped them off the ground way, way back.
Yes,
you
sir.
know, way before the bullfights even, you know.
And then,
and obviously, I'm sorry, but
No, you go
obviously
ahead.
by being a little more aggressive too, it helped get you into some other rodeos because it got you noticed.
Yes, sir.
You know, I can remember the first time when Mr. Bob Watt come up to me and asked me about coming to Fort Worth, and I used to wear a little old snap brim hat, you know, and Mr. Watt, he came up and he said, "How would you like to come to Fort Worth?" Well, heck, who wouldn't want to come to Fort Worth, you know? And I'm getting to go with Miles, and I said, "Yes, sir." And So he hired me, and then he goes, but you're going to have to get a real cowboy hat to come to Fort Worth, is what he told me. And I said, no, sir. I said, this hat's coming with me to Fort Worth. This hat got me Fort Worth. It's coming to Fort Worth.
Yeah, got to dance with the one that brung you.
Yeah, I'm going with the hat that brought me. And so I wore it, and he left me alone. But yeah, Mr. Watt, he was a good man. And Miles and I worked that. And, you know, the first time Miles and I fought bulls together, after the Cow Palace and all of that, and we're fighting bulls together at Monroe, Louisiana for Jim Shoulders. And Shoulders always started the rodeo with a bull riding and ended the rodeo with a bull riding. And so the first day, first 3 bulls out, and I mean, as soon as they bucked, you know, they're coming off, and everything Shoulders had hooked. And we're making passes, and we're going around, and we're kind of bouncing off each other, and, you know, and Miles looks over at me and he goes, what the heck are you doing? I said, well, you're the great Miles Hare. Do something. You know, and next thing we're nose to nose. I mean, we're just like this. And Shoulders rides up. John Taylor's working the barrel, and he rides up to John Taylor. He goes, what the hell's going on up there? And John Taylor goes, you got 2 young bulls and too small a pasture. And so we get done with the first section. Miles and I go in, and we're literally sitting about the distance that you and I are right here. And we sit in a chair in the dressing room, and we stare at each other for 2 hours. We don't have nothing to say. We're just glaring each other down.
Yeah.
And John Taylor sends Dottie in to get Snort to go do the act. He doesn't even want in the dressing room with us. Anyway, we get done, we work it, and then the next year, we go to Fort Worth together. So I guess my first trip to Fort Worth would have been 1980. And like I said, we get 13 perfs into this thing, and Miles runs. I look over at Miles, and I can remember, instead of worrying about who was getting more of the show, looking over and going, will you jump this son of a gun and get us out of here? And then from there on, you know, now we do schools together. We ended up as co-world champions in 1988. You know, we become bros, you know, but so it's been a great big full circle. But if I was to have to go fight bulls, I'll take Miles Hare as my partner against any team in the business.
There does seem to be a need for maturity among bullfighters, in the sense that, I guess what I mean by that is, like, you know, with bull riders, it's sometimes easy to say it's me against the bull, you know, and like that camaraderie can exist. But with bullfighters, like, you're competing for a job. Right. And it's easy to sometimes fall into that. This person is more of competition than a friend. And so I don't know, that's just an observation. Well,
you are competing for a job, but like, we would go to rodeos together, and, you know, we just figured if we're doing the job, if they're riding in and walking out, then it should be securing both guys on the job.
Right.
You know?
Well, I mean, I guess even you go to, like, hanging out with a third guy or a fourth guy, right. You know.
Yeah,
like,
it does. And I'm not a big fan of the 3 guys in the arena at once. I think it stops the guys going through on the picks. There's a lot of grabbing and picking and
well, and I guess I mean just across the board, like only 2, maybe 3 are going to get the rodeo.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right.
And so, but yeah, that is an interesting take on the 3 in the arena. I do think that if it's going to be 3, they dang sure need to know each other.
Right.
It needs to be the right 3.
Well, and when we worked 3, even in the PBR, when we first started that, we would work the left side, we would work the right side, we would sit one out. And by sitting one out, you would be up on the top side, but you would be back up out of the way, where as long as it looked like those 2 guys were going to make it, unless somebody really got thrown to the high side of the arena, and they were out there on their own, that a guy would blow through there and make a pass then to pick it up. But otherwise, you just let those 2 guys work him, and then we just worked a circle like that.
That seemed like a way better alternative than, because at the NFR, they just let the 2 guys in the arena, and they would have the 3rd guy not even suited up.
I was an alternate at the NFR. I think I worked the NFR 6 times. I was an alternate 5 times.
Why not even just have that guy out there? That seemed like, I don't know, hindsight, I guess.
Yep.
But so backing up, you're working Fort Worth. What was your first year to work the NFR?
First year to work the NFR was 1983, Rex Dunn and I.
Okay.
So I won my first Wrangler World in 1983 and worked my first NFR in 1983.
What was it like walking in? I mean, you were at the top of the mountain.
We were in Oklahoma City. Mm-hmm. Been there a couple times. Had been close. Already had been an alternate, but hadn't got the big show. And no doubt, when you start down through the tunnel, or even like especially at the Thomas and Mack, that hair kind of starts stepping up on the back of your neck, and there's electricity in the air, and if you can't get excited there, you're dead. It's then when you get to work with Joe Bumgardner or Jimmy, and I didn't work with Jimmy at the NFR, but I competed against Jimmy at the NFR, and Jimmy's over at the garbage can throwing up, and or if you work with Joe Bumgardner's over there throwing up. You're kind of like, okay, motor's running, let's go.
At what point are they throwing up? For the NFR or for the bullfights?
For getting ready to go in the arena.
Just
every perf.
Really?
Every perf. It's just their motors running, nerves, I don't know, but Bumgardner threw up all the time, and so did Jungle Jimmy.
Were your nerves going?
My nerves are going. Yeah, as a kid I boxed too, and so I compare fighting bulls a lot to boxing. You've got to be strong here. You've got to be thinking about fundamentals, and if I do my fundamentals right, both in boxing or in fighting bulls, I'm going to win more than I lose. It doesn't guarantee me I'm not going to get hit, but
So did you get dubbed the Kamikaze Kid in boxing or in bullfighting?
I got dubbed the Kamikaze Kid in fighting bulls. When I first started fighting bulls out in California for those guys in high school, I started my junior year, fought my first one, and it was just basically I was sitting on the fence, and Donnie Landis and Frank Gomes were working our high school rodeo there, and I kept, get up there, hit him on the head. And they said, you think it's so easy? Get your butt off the fence and show us how. And not that I did anything fantastic, but ran around a couple, and it was the wildest game of tag I'd ever played. And it was like, hey, I like this.
Yeah.
This is pretty cool. And having been a kid, my dad did heavy construction work. We lived overseas a bunch when I was a youngster up till 8th grade. So I'd played rugby, I've played football, I boxed. Contact sports, I wouldn't, I don't have a problem with a little contact. Let's rubbin's racing, it's okay.
Yeah.
And so, I started there, and then the next year, Frank Gomes started working bigger rodeos for Danny Russell, and it opened up a spot at our high school rodeos. And so I started working those, and, Teddy Noose was just over the hill, and District 5 and Marty Stannert. And so there was Joe Foscolina and Joe Paulo, and I had a bunch of Kirk Allman, all those guys all rode in my district. And so I'm taking care of my buddies. And then pretty soon they start passing me a check for taking care of my buddies. And
because you were riding bulls.
I was riding them a little bit. I was trying to find my spot.
Right.
I always wanted to rodeo. I mean, I got on bareback horses. I got on broncs. I love team roping. If I could have ever roped good enough, I would have never put the cleats on, but obviously I never roped that good. So,
right.
I'm still swinging at them, but I haven't got to where I want.
So the Kamikaze Kid was given to you early, but it stuck with you because it fit. You have, everybody kind of watches and thinks of you with the respect level of, I don't know, being aggressive. I don't want to say without fear, but definitely less than the rest of the bullfighters. You maintained that nickname because of who you were. Tell me about that mentality.
Well, the Kamikaze, they started calling me that, and they go, "What do you got a death wish? What are you doing?" And I said, I don't have a death wish. I don't back off and do anything I don't think I can do. It's just, there's a whole lot of things I think I can go ahead and do. And, you know, the jumping bulls over a barrel, well, it opened a whole lot of doors for me getting rodeos, you know, and I would beg to differ that if you went back through stuff, I probably jumped as many bulls over the barrel as anybody that ever has. I'm going to, you know, counting up, and a lot of them were bulls that I set the barrel, because in the bullfights, I went over several bulls in the bullfights where you basically had to try to get him close, get it set, back up, run and hit it, and go over him, you know, because obviously the times that I tried jumping them off the ground, I think I got a neck that's got a little problem with that now. But, you know, so I was much better over the barrel than I was off the ground. And
yeah. But that aggression and I guess love for the freestyle game, I mean, I just think it clearly made you that much more of an aggressive cowboy protection guy.
And I feel that's when Miles and I do schools and we start talking to those guys, and you'll get some of those guys go, well, I'm mainly just a cowboy protector. And I said, you know what? When I start hearing guys that just go, oh, I'm just into cowboy protection, I'm like, no, really what it is this isn't pounding right. You're scared.
Yeah.
And that's going to sound a little wrong, but what it is they don't feel that they can control the situation. That's my perception. And if you'll start freestyling some and I start teaching you how to get around one and to get a hand on one and control him, and that's what's been so good about the schools Miles and I have been getting to do together, where we've made sure that we've got the right stock, that we've got some heifers, like you mentioned, them 400 and 500 pound heifers. Then we go to some cows. Then we go to some bulls, because I'm not teaching you anything if I'm wiping you out and hurting you.
Right.
Whether it's boxing, football, whatever. If you keep having to pick yourself up off the ground, pretty soon it's not fun. And that's one of the problems that our sport has with the horse riders and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, because they're getting on, or even in the bull riding program, because they're starting to put these kids on born to buck program animals that are, you know, A-teamers, even though they're just 2-year-olds.
Right.
And it's hard, you know, you don't have anything for them to learn timing and to groom them, to bring them along. And so by these schools, we can start them there. Sometimes some guys don't ever get past the cows, but that's okay. Come to the next one, you know, you got things to work on. And then you got guys where you can start teaching them and they can start talking about hop, 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 throw the fake, move back this way, and they see it works here, and then we bring something a little hotter and it works here, and you know, and you can start developing things.
And then that will make you a better
And
cowboy protection.
it makes it when you have to shoot the gap and hit the hole, that you're going to go through there with a feeling that you can slow down and grab one and take him where he needs to be. The biggest problem with those guys, I'm not saying they don't shoot the gap, but a lot of those guys shoot the gap and they've already got a spot picked on the panels over there that they're going to.
Right.
And they hit it and they're going through at 900 miles an hour. And, you know, yeah, they hit it, but they were going through so fast, the bull didn't even see them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yeah, when I fought bulls, Corey Wall was a big.
I know Corey well.
Yeah.
He's up in Colorado now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like one of the first things. Him and Benny Bob Patrick. And that was what they both, like, you just gotta be okay with, you know, making rounds with, yes, at the end of the rodeo. But
right.
then just it just keeps you on the edge.
But things I also found through my career too was, if I can get a couple of good picks on your bucking bull, on his bucking bull, and on this other bucking bull, that the boss is going to be a little easier on when he just turns out that great big old fighting bull that ain't much fun to sell it on, that I might be able to just get a quick couple rounds, get him over to the barrel, one good bump and and he lets us out of there a little easier because I got selling spots throughout the show. And the other big problem is now with those guys that just want to be cowboy protectors. And you think about how many times we watch it on TV now that those guys are all standing at the buck and shoots and they keep slamming guys all night long. They don't get anything rode in the perf. What sold the bull riding? But if you guys will just I tell those guys, you ain't got to go out there and fight one for 70 seconds.
Yeah.
But just a couple of passes that it gives that announcer, ladies and gentlemen, that little extra was just for you.
Yeah.
It gives them something to cheer about.
Yeah.
It's gonna help guarantee you some work.
Yeah, I remember Corey saying something about if you are going to get in trouble, do it by being too aggressive. And I remember watching one of the NFRs that was, I don't know, it might have been like 08 or 09, but it was Webb, Tuck, and maybe somebody else. But I know those two for sure. But it was during the bull riding, and I'm watching it from the TV, and so the audio is on, and you can hear the audio like around the chutes, and they're out there, and somebody yells at them to get out.
Yeah.
And it's just such a neat moment because those guys are the kinds of bullfighters that you have to, hold them back. And I just remember somebody yelling from the buck and shoots, a stock contractor, a flank man, I'm sure. I don't know who it was.
It's a lot better to have them threaten to put the chain on you to tie you back than to be trying to hit you with the hot shot to say, will you get out there and go sell something?
Or go save the guy.
Go save the guy. And that's what it's about. And, the biggest thing, I was blessed in the sport. I got to fight bulls 28 years professionally, 30 years total. But if I was to say the highlight of all of it is that I love the game. I love the game with all my heart. And if it wouldn't cost me a divorce, I'm fixing to be 66 in another couple of weeks, I'd go back tomorrow. That's how much I love the game.
You talk about selling the rodeo, and I know that was super common back then and still a little bit now. It doesn't seem like as common. But another thing that I feel like just from listening to a lot of you guys talk that was common back then was turning bulls back.
Yeah, there was a lot more bulls that you would step out there, turn bulls back, get back out of their way.
That was part of the job.
Yeah.
What was that something you enjoyed doing or were good at?
I like turning bulls back. I watched Wick a lot. Wick got low. The thing is so many of those taller guys, all those bulls are seeing is some feet mainly. And Wick would get down and get in that eye and make those bulls bend and get them to start. And then having the ability to get in there, driving at that shoulder, like coming from behind the chute rather than in front of them. But then sometimes like when you got around a pen of where it was predominantly more young bulls, you were almost better being out about a couple, 3 jumps and letting that bull jump and clear the chute and making sure he sees you and start around a way to get him to go and then knowing to get out of the way. And
it seemed like, obviously bulls these days don't seem to, if they don't turn back, a guy's probably going to get a re-ride.
Right. And like at the NFR, there is no turning bulls back. The rule at the NFR is you stay out of the way and you're there for cowboy protection, and that was the rule.
Yeah, that's I guess just one of the ways that the sport has changed.
Well, the breeding programs have been phenomenal. They've done great, but you also hear how much better the bulls are now, and I don't know that they're any better than what was there, but there's just that many more on the A team. There's just that many more starters than what was there back in the day.
I want to go back to the Wrangler bullfights and just what it was like in the heyday. What was it? Was it 20 years?
20 years
that they went on till like the early 2000s.
Yep. 2000 was last year.
Was it? Okay. And then, so when did you tell me about your career as it pertains to Wrangler bullfights?
I made it from, well, I was there to the first one. My last one was 1998.
Dang.
1999. And I didn't compete in 2000. I didn't compete in 97. I broke my neck the first time in 92, in March of 92 in Monroe, Louisiana, with Harper and Morgan's bulls. And so I missed that year. 1996, I was in the lead for the world and slipped, and Hillbilly of Harper and Morgan's hit me in the butt at Memphis, Tennessee. And I was from about me to you from Rudy Burns's barrel, and he hit me and it shot me, and I hit that barrel with the top of my head.
Ooh.
I broke C1, which is the one Christopher Reeves broke.
Ooh.
He broke it in one place. I broke it in 3.
Dang.
Once again, the father, had his hand on me, because you're not supposed to walk away from that. And I walked away. My ears, that night, the biggest thing that I remember, when I hit that barrel and I stepped back up and I kind of cocked my head and I just heard it. And that has never gone away.
Really?
So that's 1996. We're 1 year short of 30 years. And that high-pitched ring is
still there. Just constant.
Constant. It doesn't ever go away.
Wow.
And so they put a halo on me then. That was in September. So the worst phone call of my life was having to call the NFR and turn out.
Golly. Yeah.
To call it and turn out. And obviously that second time the doc says, first time I break C4, 5, and 6, which are the ones that work your arms and legs. And I walk away and the doc says, you won't fight bulls against them. No.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about it was good sound bites, good quick answers is, people would go, well, why would you go back and fight bulls? I said, well, God meant for me not to fight bulls. He'd have made it so I couldn't. He's got a plan. I don't know what it is, but we'll see, right? So that was, and then 96, I come back and in the lead for the world, and I break my neck again. And 97, 98, I get a phone call from a man in Twin Falls, Idaho, Lynn Shaw. And he calls me and he says he wants me to come to a rodeo school Bible camp. And I said, yes, sir. And I am humming and hawing. And I said, I got some things I still got to finish straightening up myself before I start telling kids how they got to be. And we're going back and forth. Now, this is back before cell phones. We're on landlines. And I get off the phone. I said, I talked with Carla, and Carla was teaching school. We were living in Shamrock. So Carla comes home and she goes, yeah, you should take him up on it. Go up there. And then next day he calls back and we're talking back and forth. And he goes, Rob Smets, in your National Geographic interview, didn't you say to those people that God had a plan and you just didn't know what it was? I'm like, man, this guy's got me with my own words. They come back to bite me. And then he goes, the plan is, and I'll be easy on your microphone, but he just screams in my ear, the plan is you will be in Twin Falls, Idaho. I said, yes, sir. And I went there, and the who's who of our sport, Cody Custer, Scott Mendez, Rope Myers, Strand Smith, Jake Barnes, Clay O'Brien Cooper, Andy Taylor, they're all there. And that first morning, Rope Myers is giving his testimony, and he's going back and forth. And I'm standing on the side over here, and my knees are getting weak, and the tears are starting down my face. And I see tears in Rope's face as he's talking, and tears of joy. Mm-hmm. And he's talking, and I'm standing over there, and I'm thinking, man, I've spent a lot of money on a lot of stuff. trying to find what he's got right there. And mind you, this is the first morning of the school, the first speaker. It's not like I've been there 3 days and this testimony and this testimony and this testimony. First morning, first guy out.
Dang.
Huh? And I saw a rope walk this high at the bottom of this table off the ground. And I make sure I tell that to people whenever I give my testimony. I watched him walk elevated above the arena of the floor.
What do you mean by that?
He was off the ground. How? I don't know. Nobody else might have seen it. I saw him walking above the floor. And I was straight. There was no, I'm just saying and I make sure I share that every time I give my testimony as you think whatever you want to think, but the Father was speaking.
Floating?
The Father was speaking to me, and they were pulling on my heart. And
You mean like he was
like he
almost
was floating, like he was
out of
walking
there.
above the ground.
Dang.
And they did an altar call. The first person on their knees was me. And Andy, everybody that come, they laid hands on me, and it felt like they lifted this building off my shoulders. Have I ever made mistakes since? Yes, I've made mistakes since. But it's been a 28-year journey. And I am living proof that he's merciful and forgiving because I tried him pretty darn hard. And that's the big thing now that I try to get the opportunity to share is to, the one thing that all the years of rodeo and being at the PBRs and that has opened some doors for me to get to go and share and give testimony at places. And so that's been.
Yeah. And that was late 90s?
That was late 1998. I've already been through a divorce. I've got 2 girls in Oregon from my first marriage. She was Sherry Christensen, that was Christensen Brothers Rodeo Company up there in the Northwest. And fortunately, I've made peace with my 2 daughters. I've got 2 daughters here in Texas that Carla and I have been married 33 years now, been together, 32, 33 and a half together. And Corey lives in Rankin. I've got a grandson there. And then Dylan is in Stephenville, and got Drew, my granddaughter's 8, and Dallas is going to be a year old on the 20th of September.
Hey, old son, if you're not feeding every morning with a Can-Am side-by-side, then you ain't no cowboy. I got a Can-Am because I needed a reliable ranch rig that I could use every day because I don't know how to work on stuff like that. So I want something that's not going to break down ever. Get yourself a Can-Am, old son.
So was your bullfighting, like you had quite a bit of a career prior to that. What was the pulse like? I mean, were there a lot of believers around you prior to that? Like, what was your career like? I'm not asking like if you were wild, but
there's no doubt I was wild. Whether you ask it or not, there's no doubt. We lived on the wild side, and
I mean, your nickname was the Kamikaze Kid, so
Yeah.
I can only imagine. But I mean, was it just something you hadn't paid attention to?
I just, I always knew that the Father was there. I graduated. I went to Catholic boys' schools in Australia. I graduated from a Catholic boys' school, but I just always kept him at a comfortable distance, that I got this. I got this. We're all right. And like I said, that day, Rope was given that testimony. And I was tired of wrestling. I was to the point.
And you broke your neck twice.
I broke my neck twice. I was to the point, though, that I didn't even like the guy in the mirror.
Did the neck, having been broke twice, have a lot to do with it?
I don't think so.
Really?
I don't think the neck being broke twice, but I had no peace. That 1992, when I broke it the first time, I'd already won 4 world championships. I won it in 83, 85, 86. Miles and I tied for the world in 88. And then when I broke my neck in 92, and everybody, he's done. He'll never fight bulls again, And it was, I'll show those son of a bucks, right? I mean, there it is. And So I made the finals. 93. I came back 93, made the finals, win third. 94, come back and I win the world. And we get done with winning the world that night, and I get to the Gold Coast, and Carla and I get upstairs, and I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, and that new world championship didn't make me a damn bit happier. Huh? What did I prove? Having that grudge and that chip on my shoulder, all it does is steal your peace. You know, the Father tells us to let that anger go. Settle it before you go to bed at night. And I'd been carrying that chip on my shoulder for a couple of years because I was going to show everybody. You know, what did I show them? I didn't show them anything. You know, and so I didn't have peace, and got up there, and like I said, and so start focusing on making changes. And, you know, to this day now, it's get up in the morning. It's make some time and open that book. It's make some time and find a quiet place and letting him speak to me, you know. And people start asking, well, so you hear his voice? No, he doesn't say, Rob, I need you to do this. But you know what? It's amazing how often you can open that book and just grab it and open it. And somewhere on the 2 pages that you open it, it's going to speak pretty hard right here.
Yeah. How did that, because you weren't retired yet, how did that affect your career moving forward?
I think that it started making moves. I fought bulls another 8 years, or another 10 years, actually. Made one more NFR that I fought bulls, Joe Bumgardner and I. And that's why I said I know that he throws up every perf, because I worked 10 perfs in a row with him there. But Bumgardner, you can't have a better guy to be across from. You know, all throughout my career, fought bulls with Jimmy, fought bulls with Miles, you know, at places, Smurf, Bumgardner, you know, Dennis Johnson, Greg Crabtree, you know, at the PBRs, at Frank Newsom. I was across from good guys, guys that had your back, that you know that you weren't afraid to take that kamikaze chance, because if you went down, you knew they were going to be there. It was just an unsung deal. And like Miles and I can remember nights, Miles and I fighting bulls and being at the NFR, and no doubt, unfortunately, there's some days even at the NFR, you make a mistake. You know, the tough part of the job is you're standing on a street corner, you're waiting for a wreck to happen. You don't ever know how bad it's going to be. And I got to make the right decision that fast.
And at the NFR, it's 15 bull riders, 10, that's 150 outs.
Right.
You got to be perfect.
Right. You got to be perfect. And with how many armchair quarterbacks right here like this watching me on TV.
That different.
Yeah. It's easy to say I would have done that different. But, you know, and then even though you're also, just like what you said, you know, we are competing, but we're not competing. We're working as a team there. That it makes both guys look bad when there's that mistake, you know. And I can remember nights make a mistake, look up, Miles you know, there wasn't ever a word said.
Yeah.
It's all we got to do is look each other in the eye and know that, you know, enough said.
You knew deep down
inside what had to be
for a second,
right.
You wonder if he knows, and then when you see him looking at you, now you know he knows.
Yeah, you know, and it's like, pull your hat down, pull your head out of your butt, because it's like being a cornerback in football. If they beat me for a touchdown, you know they're coming back at me. You better know what your mistake was, clear your mind, because they're coming again. And you got to be able to do it that fast, because the next guy's already slid up on his rope. I got to forget it. I got to go here.
That's a really good point. Yeah. How much of a difference was there, or was there one at all, when the PBR came about and you started fighting some of those? Like, did it feel different outside of, like, I mean, in the arena?
The PBRs, you know, I was there with the PBR when they first started, you know, and so getting to go to those, obviously the biggest thing about it was that you're not working 10 or 15 bulls. You're working 35 to 50 bulls a night, depending on if there's any re-rides and stuff. So, and being able to keep your focus, you know, you gotta stay in the game the whole time.
Did they have 3 from the start?
No,
Bullfighters?
no, there'd be a couple at him, and then it grew, and then like at the finals they ended up with 4. You'd have 2 work one side of the arena and 2 work the other, because they started putting the buck and shoots at both ends, and it grew from there. But mainly they sent 3 to an event. That way, if they got somewhere and somebody got hurt, they had that extra guy there.
Who were the main bullfighters that first year or two?
Joe, Lloyd Ketchum, Jimmy, me.
That's who would.
Yep. And then when I broke my neck, then Roach came on the scene, and then also Dennis Johnson would have been there, and then Crabtree started coming in.
Roach made me think. I refer to that moment when Tough got hung up that year at the NFR, where Roach ended up out there.
Miles and I were fighting. That was Miles and my perf, and that was Harry's bull.
Yeah. What happened that day?
That was just one of those deals that Tough's hand twisted and twisted again. And I mean, he was dang sure in there. And fortunately, it was a night that it was regular bullfights. And before it was all said and done, every bullfighter in the place was over the fence, and, you know, and Roach was trying to get him freed up. And, you know, Miles got knocked down. I got caught, flipped in the air. And I was like the guy at the carnival guessing how much he weighed, because everything went over the top of me, and got back up. And, you know, it was a pretty wild night at the office.
Yeah, that there's times when people come into the arena, and I think as a bullfighter, it's super aggravating if someone jumps in there. But maybe there's exceptions where there's other times where, like, no, that one was okay. Or maybe that was.
Well, and in that case, I mean, he was hung, darn sure hung. And
obviously.
Obviously. He was darn sure hung to him. And, you know, the most important thing is getting him out of there. Mm-hmm. And then he come back and won the go-round the next night.
Yeah.
Reminiscent of his name, you know. I mean, one of the things I saw over the years fighting bulls in the Rose Garden there at the MGM was Tough and Bodacious going head to head. You know, things I've seen in my life. Mind you, Tough never lost consciousness. So if you ever think about wanting to slide up and stick one on Tough and think you're going to sucker punch him and that you'll solve the problem, just mind you, he's going to be pretty hard to knock out.
Yeah, you're still going to have to fight him.
There's still going to be some punches thrown, I think, because he took a heck of a whack that night from Bodacious.
Well, that hang up, like, it just kind of is always in the back of my mind. And we were fighting bulls, or we were bucking bulls here at the house, and I was fighting for a kid. It was been a few years back, and he got hung up by a spur to his bell strap, and I had a knife in my pocket, completely forgot about it, and I went to the bull's head, and anyhow, someone asked me why, and I all I could think about was that.
Try to keep him straightened out.
Well, no, I jumped on his head.
Okay, and like what Smurf did on 018 when Joe Wimberly hung up, and him and Miles were working the finals, and Smurf grabbed a hold of the horn.
Yes, I remember that one too. Yeah, I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah,
and anyways, it ended up working out, and we got the bull slowed down and got him out. My brother ended up cutting it, and but I always think back to that bull. And then later I realized I had a knife in my pocket because I was just wearing
but you know what? I'm not a big fan. And I can remember just the same thing happening. We were in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I forget who it was, but came out the back, spur hangs in the flank there, you know, and the next thing I see is we're going round and round, and we're trying to get things, and I end up getting this bull by the tail because I'm trying to just keep his back feet from being able to be up high in case things come loose to land in the middle of him. And here comes Ross Coleman with a pocket knife. And I'm thinking, oh no. I was just closing my eyes. I don't want to see this, you know?
Right. Yeah. That would be, Well, and I guess that's where I was going with that. Did you guys
I
get to where
never
you
carried
carried
a
one?
knife.
No,
Nope.
just, you know,
The job's to get his hand out of there, but no, I've never carried a knife or a seatbelt holder, cutter, or anything.
yeah. What about, so what would your protocol be if they hung a spur on the flank or the tip of the rope?
I mean, I only started seeing it a little bit here as of in the last 30 years. Before that, I never had seen guys hang, and then a couple of those guys, those spur rowels started getting longer. Their spurs, the shank and that, and it happened a couple of times, and all you can keep doing is digging and trying to get there. And, I would think the most important thing is on hang up, trying to get to the bull's head to get him straightened out so that you can try to give your partners the best shot to try to get there and take care of the rest.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it's a mess no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, even grabbing their tail at some point, you just trying everything.
Yeah, you're trying whatever you can do to get
Never
things
quit.
slowed down. And yeah, you just got to keep digging.
Never quit. That's the main thing.
That's it.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to think of the 90s because there's so much going on. You're still going to some NFRs, you're going to PBRs, and the Wrangler bullfights are all through that decade. So you guys are fighting so many bulls.
So I worked 6 NFRs, 5 of them I competed. I worked the NFR and competed in the bullfight.
Golly.
At the same time.
Good heavens. When y'all had when the Wrangler...
So the night of Tough Steel, I was still in the bullfights.
You had a fight after that.
After that.
How many perfs? Was it all 10 perfs?
4 perfs.
Okay.
We would go, when they first let us come into the NFR, we were Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which were your slack nights for selling tickets, and it helped bring more ticket sales to the NFR. And so it went there. And then I ended up competing 17 times. I qualified 17 times for the finals in the bullfight, and then worked the NFR 6 times.
Man, why'd they do away with them?
I don't know. They talk about the time constraints, because they want people in the casinos. I know that the NFR is very stopwatch oriented about what time things start and what goes on.
And they
because there's 2 events that would still sell a whole lot of tickets right now at the NFR. No doubt bringing the bullfight back in there, I think, would sell tickets, but the ladies breakaway roping needs to be in the NFR. And I'm just saying, I've got to watch. There's so much talent out there right now. Those girls are
for sure. Yeah.
Through the roof.
They can outrope me.
Yeah. Oh, they can rope. I mean,
I was going to ask, is there maybe an element of they're able to sell out Monday through Thursday now without
probably?
any,
and that might be too, that they're not lacking. So,
why change it?
Yeah.
What is it? It's like, is it 18,500 people fit in the Thompson match?
It's right there between 17.5 and 18.5.
Yeah.
I think it is.
And then I heard this was even, back in like 2019, I was helping Las Vegas events with some stuff. And the number back then was 400,000 people go to Vegas for the NFR, even though if you times 18,000 by 10, it's only 180,000 are going to go into the building.
Yeah, but there's a whole bunch of people that come there that don't ever even go to the NFR. They go to the Cowboy Christmas. They go to, there's so much going on. And especially now they're getting ready to have that junior high or junior national finals for all the youth. That, it just keeps growing.
And then South Point, they've always got something out there.
Yeah. Well, the South Point with the World Series team roping going on out there. And then they've started all those ropings at the Orleans. It's really
It would be
good.
sad if it left Vegas. Would you be sad for it to go somewhere else, or how would you feel?
I don't see how there's nobody can bid with Vegas. And how do you leave something? You can't leave for less money.
Right.
you know, and I just don't see Las Vegas, you know, they're not going to let it get away from them.
Man,
It's way too big of a convention in December when things are slow just about everywhere else.
can you walk me through a night or maybe the difference in nights at the bullfights? Like, I know there was a crossbred pin. There was a Mexican pin. Like, what were those different nights?
There were nights where, you know, no doubt we would start with a pretty good pin, like a pin that had only been fought once or twice. Good young Mexicans that would have a little kick at the flank and let guys really show off their stuff. And that, you know, there was joking going on and it's pretty good and all that. And when it would get to be that third and fourth round, you knew that we're starting to pick up the tempo a little bit. The fourth round was always crooked nose, you know, the big pin, the A team. And when the bulldoggers start showing up in the bullfighter locker room going, who's got crooked nose?
Yeah. Yeah, you shouldn't know the bulls. You shouldn't know what bulls
Yeah. Do Steve Duhan and Mike Smith and them start walking in and they start asking, who's got crooked nose? Who's this?
That's a good point.
Them,
When
them
the
guys are like,
Tommies-
yeah, there's not a lot of joking going on that night.
Right.
Everybody's taping. Everybody's pretty serious. You're running your stuff through your mind. And yeah.
Was it, how big was the pin at Oklahoma City arena? Like, how big was that arena?
It was that Myriad Convention Center. It was in the Myriad. It was just the full size of what the NFR was.
Oh, it was the same
Yeah,
size?
there was no turnback fence. And what we did, so in Oklahoma City, the bullfights were with a event called the Beauty and the Beast. It was with the Miss Rodeo America pageant.
Okay.
And the first 4 years that we were out there, we would fight it. We'd start the show with the bullfights. Then they would have a Miss Rodeo America contest. And then part of the bullfighter contest was the number 16 through 21 man in the bull riding would come and get on one. Now, come get on one that bucked, but one that hooked. And we also got judged at how well our cowboy protection was.
Oh.
And then, it just on one bull, but you got some points there. Then they would go back to another part of the queen contest. And then we would end the show so we would end up fighting 2 fighting bulls a day.
So this was
It was just
before it was at the NFR.
This was before, well, it was at the NFR, but pre-NFR, like during the day.
Gotcha.
And then the NFR would be that night.
Okay.
And then when they came to Vegas, we got it in with the NFR.
Performance.
And I actually voted against that because they had us all in a meeting that one night and they asked us going out to Las Vegas. They said, do you want to be in with the NFR or do you want to stay with like the Beauty and the Beast and that way? And everybody voted to go in with the NFR. And I was like, let's stay with the Beauty and the Beast and let's see what kind of ticket sales we got and how good we're doing on our own.
Yeah. Then negotiate from there.
Could give us a lot more room for a lot better bartering.
Right.
And anyway, we ended up going in with the NFR and it worked really good.
What a neat concept and even name, Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the
that's
Beast.
so cool.
Yeah.
I feel I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about the Jägermeister commercial. Who were you in that with?
You know, the Jägermeister, Freddie Roach, Manny Pacquiao's trainer, Keyshawn Johnson from the Cowboys.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Cartoon, who is a tattoo artist out of Los Angeles. Mike Lingerfeld, who was a NASCAR, he was a tire changer, and he had won the championship in that. The guy from Kerry King from the rock band Slayer.
Uh-huh.
He was a lead singer from Slayer. And who else?
I remember that being such a neat moment because when I saw it, at least, I'm sure, I mean, Mahan had probably done this also and some other Cowboys, but like for me, it was kind of at the time, one of our Cowboys had crossed over into mainstream media for TV
Right.
and everything. And that was really cool for us to be represented.
It was, what was shocking was we went to Prague, Czechoslovakia. We went over, we were at Prague. So that's opening scene where I'm walking down through the hallway there. That's in a castle that was built in like the 1400s.
Oh,
And they have all this stuff up in there, and you're walking, there's, no electricity in that thing. Everything we ran was off generators, and they had extension cords strung for the lights and all that. And they had all those guys at the table. Well, when going over there, I didn't realize that I was going to be the one that walked in the door.
yep. I can picture it right now.
Nobody even told me about it, And so they explain that. They explain it, and I end up putting all my stuff on, and standing out there in the opening scene and walking into the castle and walking down the hallway. But the first time I opened that door, and that group of guys was all sitting at the table,
Men.
right? A group of men, right? Or the who's who. And I open the door, and everybody pops their head up, even though it's a commercial or whatever, the hair on the back of my neck just stood up, and it was just like, whoa,
Yeah.
And then they grab that Jägermeister shot and take a shot, and, a seat at the table, come join us. It was just.
And then didn't y'all vote on what was the terminology? You voted on whether something was manly or not, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of them was this is all from memory. Like I'm not, so if I'm off, like I'm just remembering this from 2 decades ago, but y'all voted on whether or not it was manly for a guy to like hold beers a certain way, like he would like, or something like that, like the way he carried him over, and like little things like that. God, it was such a catchy, and you guys were like vote. Maybe am I on the right track?
Yeah, no, it was, and it was a whole lot of fun, them guys, and then just getting to spend time with each other while we were waiting on the set for what they were going to do next. And
I can picture you at the table holding like the shot.
I had a shot with the old Jägermeister. Yeah, it was, they, and actually one night we're back at the hotel and we're shooting pool. Kerry King, he's all tatted up full, and if you've ever happened to look though, he's got on his tattoo on his arm, says God hates us all.
Whoa.
Right? By then I
Found the Lord.
started my walk, and I look over at him, we're shooting pool, and Carla had gone with me. We go on the trip over there, and we're shooting pool, and I see that, and I said, you really don't believe that, do you? And he kind of, yeah, and I said, well, why would he hate us all if he came back after us? And first thing, my school teacher wife, Carla, going, Rob, she's, don't, and I just told Carla, I said, Carla, stay out of this. You just sit over there. And needless to say, we joust back and forth a little bit. But when I get back home to the States, the first person I got a text message from saying that they really enjoyed getting to meet me and be on the deal was Kerry King. I'm not saying he didn't accept the Lord as his Lord and Savior over that. I mean, but just the going back and forth. And then at that point in time, right after that, I end up going to South Texas. I work in the oil field a little bit. Everything, we're retired and it's all over with. And I'm working for Murphy Oil Company, and then the oil field collapses on me, and I end up selling trucks for Mike Booth at Atascosa Dodge for a little bit there for 3 years. We're at the Dodge dealership though one day, and I listen on the radio, and there's a bunch of them young car salesmen all around there, and they're talking about who's coming to San Antonio for the rodeo and the bands and that, and Slayer's coming, and all them boys were all like, oh, Slayer's coming, man. That'd be so cool to get to go see. I was like, you guys want to go to Slayer? And they were looking at me like, oh man, what are you, what do you know about Slayer? And I said, how many of you guys want to go? And, there ended up being like 4 of them. I said, let me make a phone call. So I call Kerry King. I've got him in my phone right to this day. It's still there. But so I make a phone call and ask about some tickets. And he goes, yeah. And so I get 4 tickets. I come back in, there they are. And them boys are just upside down. They go, are you going? I said, I'm not going. But, and they had them where they were backstage. They could stand on the backstage. Oh, yeah, they were first class tickets. Kerry King took, and I got to
what a treat.
Say thank you. And, kind of made me a hero around the dealership
treat.
for a couple of days. And so it was cool.
Yeah, in my head, as you're describing that situation playing pool, it made me think like, man, that's intimidating. And then I thought, well, it's the kamikaze kid. Of course, he's probably not scared to talk to the guy. Like, man, no wonder, God's going to, of course, use, you've been up against Crooked Nose. What's Kerry King going to do to you,
Well, I don't know about that, but I guess right now the biggest words that the Father keeps in my heart is Joshua 1:9. Mm-hmm. Be strong and of good courage. Do not be discouraged or dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And if we're seeking things for him where it's in the right way, not for us or not for thinking we can step over the line here and you're going to say, oh, it's okay over there, because he's not going to approve that. But if we're trying to do things in the right way and trying to open some eyes and shine a little light, he's got us.
A lot of bullfighters even have the verse tattooed on them, and rightfully so. But a scripture that a lot of guys go to with bullfighting would be John 15:13, like no greater love than a man that'll lay down his
life for his brother. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I think sometimes it's easy for guys to maybe use as an excuse to play a cool sport. But for the most part, like, you do have to have a serve at some point, especially you get on down the career and it's less of an adrenaline high and more like, hey, like tonight it's a job. Right. Maybe you're not, this isn't a night where you would just go chase an adrenaline high for the fun of it. Like, hey, I'm tired, I'm sore, but this is my job and I've got to shoot that gap and take that hook in for that cowboy. And, is that for you? Is that something you would remind yourself of at times? I'm sure there's other times you're on a high with Miles Hare and you're at the NFR and nobody's got to remind you of your job.
Right. Yeah. And obviously if they've got to remind you of your job at the NFR, then you need to go home.
But
and the thing about fighting bulls and riding bulls, you've got to be all in. This has got to tick. You got to eat it. You got to sleep it. You got to drink it. I got to be all in, because when I'm not ready to give 100%, I'm going to get myself hurt or I'm going to get my partner or somebody or a bull rider. I'm going to get somebody hurt.
Yes, sir.
And that's just the nature of the beast right there.
Yes,
like
sir.
Back in football, when you go to cruising at 80% and somebody come through there and just clean your clock because he wasn't at 80%. And it's the same thing with this game. You've got to be all in. You got to give 100% because, like I said, you don't ever know when it's going to happen. And there's nights that you cruise through it and it's I just roll through there and whack, 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 whack. And then there's those nights that the first guy out rolls a hand over, hangs up, and then you kind of step back from each other because you got away with it and go, pull your hat down. It's going to be a long night because it's fixing to happen, and it seems like it works like that too, that there's nights that everything will just flow pretty easy. And then there's nights that it's like going to war.
Yep. So I want to talk about that, but what do you think was different in your mind and heart than the guys that couldn't, or either they never could or they got to where they couldn't, step out there and really push themselves? Like the fear sets in. What was different about?
I think
the way you
it's
handled
it's
fear.
what I brought up to you a little bit ago about whatever the accolade. I loved the game. I love the game. Like I said, if I would go, no
Even
doubt I need to go over there to that weight room that you have on the outside of this podcast room and get serious about some things. But if it wouldn't cost me a divorce, I'd be back in a heartbeat. And that's crazy as heck. And they probably have to carry me out, but I'm be willing to take that chance.
Was there any did you find yourself ever hesitating or wanting to hesitate after you broke your neck?
Not after I broke my neck, but when in 1985, I jumped a bull over the barrel in Salt Lake City, July 24th, Founders Day of Utah. And Miles and I are working it. I jump a bull of Swanee's. I get a foot on his head, and he flips me and throws me down. He sticks a horn in me, and he sticks a horn in me right below and right above, 4.5 inches to the base of my spine. And everything's hot.
Whoa.
And I get up and I get back to the barrel, around the barrel, and I kind of look at Miles and I say, get him started to the outgate, get him out of here. He split me wide open. Because all I could feel is heat. I don't know how bad things are. I got no idea. And I can, in my baggies, and I kind of step like that and I go like this. And I mean, all I see is blood. And all I feel is heat. And I don't know how bad this deal is. And they get me to the locker room, and all I can hear is Miles in the background going, oh. I said, hey, Miles, if you ain't got anything better to say than that, get out of here. And the things that are running through my mind, I'm supposed to be in Joseph, Oregon in 3 days. And I'm supposed, and this and that. And in the meantime, I'd been as sorry as I could be. And, yeah. And I'd always had a feeling that I'd always said, if I make 25, I'm going to make 105. That I just always had that belief in my mind, right?
If you make 25.
If I make 25 years old, I'm going to 105.
Gotcha.
Those were my two target numbers.
Okay.
Well, July 24th, I'm 24 and a half years old. I'm laying face down on this board, and all I can hear is a whole lot of, oh gosh. And I'm thinking, this is it.
Dang, you thought it was.
I was thinking this is it. Huh? I'm not gonna make 25.
Oh wow.
I don't know. Like I said, all I can feel is heat. I don't know how bad things are. I got no clue. And your guts are spilling out.
The
things that are going through my mind are just, I owe money, or I got to be at this rodeo. What's this? What about here? What about this? It's amazing how things just slowed down, and you're thinking here, there, And fortunately, it all worked out. And actually, I end up coming back. That's the first year that we moved to Las Vegas, and I come back and won the world in December. Yeah.
So did that? So, going back, did that make you like hesitate at all after that?
Well, hesitating. So, and speaking about the hesitation, so what has made Rob Smets was jumping bulls over the barrel, as far as what had got me into a lot of rodeos. So the first couple times of backing up from that barrel, and
is that what had got you hooked?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
and so backing up from the barrel and running at it wide open, knowing that it's step and go, and and not being hesitant, and all that hesitancy is going to do is take away my momentum of trying to finish the jump. It's going to really get me hurt. And it was like, I think I probably worked 3 or 4 performances, my first 3 or 4 perfs back, and I didn't get anything done. And I basically just told myself, hey, we're going to keep doing this. We got to do this.
Yeah.
And then, I lined out at one and jumped one. And then it was like, okay, and we're back where we need to be. But I knew that, this is the dance that brought me on. If you can't do your dance, and it's probably going to cost you some work.
So you talk about those nights that things are going your way, and there's some nights that it doesn't. And I've heard different people call it like the flow state, and you hear football players talk about it, and it happens for bull riders. Like there's just certain nights that they can't get bucked off, and there's it seems like your mental sharpness is there. Physically, you're great, or at least good, and you feel great, and maybe just things go your way. I think basketball players maybe,
Sure.
But bullfighting, it can happen too, and just the way a bull rider gets bucked off, and you see it coming. You're like Spider-Man. Things slow down,
Yep.
And flow state, whatever it is, I don't know, whatever people call it, but the nights that's not happening, what would you do to turn that around?
The nights that like I said, you make that mistake and you're whoops, like I also mentioned, there's not time to sit there and have a pity party.
Mm-hmm.
That next guy is already warming his rope up and he's getting ready. I got to be able to, I can be mad at myself and all that, but it's not time to throw my sucker in the dirt. And I can't, and the tough part about the job is I can't say, hey, come fill in for me for a couple and let me go think about this. The next guy's already ready to go. So I got to be able to clear my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to be tough. It's not for the weak-hearted. Like Carla says, it ain't tiddlywinks.
What do you feel like the state of rodeo and specifically bullfighting is in today? How do you feel about the event?
I think rodeo is growing tremendously, and being able to be on the Cowboy Channel and putting it in people's houses all the time, much like what the PBR was able to do from the 90s on every weekend, bringing the PBR in, putting it in people's living rooms. And now with the Cowboy Channel, it's growing tremendously, and it's making people a lot more aware, and it's helping bring sponsors in that are helping pay bills other than just what guys are winning. And, that's awesome.
Yes, sir.
And that to keep growing, I think that, but I also think that so many of the youngsters coming up through the ranks too got to realize that they don't just put ranch fuel on you or Wrangler on you just because all of a sudden you decided you wanted to play.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You got to go do something. And what are you willing to do? And that it's not just arena time, and that they need to be, and especially nowadays with Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and everything, but you better use your head at what you're putting out there.
Yeah, at the end of the day,
what kind of a representative are you being? At
the end of the day, it's ranchfuel.com. It's not ranchfuel.org.
Right.
They're trying to make money.
Right.
And if you can't help Wrangler or Ranch Fuel or whoever, Cactus Ropes, sell more ropes. I mean, when they give you $5,000, they're expecting that to help them make $50,000.
That's right.
That's what one of the I had a sponsor, and it was one of my first ones, and that was the example he used. If I'm gonna give you $5,000, that means I want it to make me 50.
Right.
Or why not? Why won't I just keep it? Because it's not a charity.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's right on the money. But so that's rodeo. How do you feel about bullfighting today in 2025?
Well, I think the bullfighting's grown quite a bit. You've got the bullfighters only. Joey's done a great job with that, and Weston and, Weston Ratowski, Cody Emerson, those guys competing over there happen to be Miles Hare and Rob Smets students.
Yep. I knew that.
I got another good young gun that's coming up through the ranks. That's up there in Idaho right now. A young kid named Eli Belknap, and he called me as I was driving up here, and Eli goes, "It'd sure be good if you'd mention me." So I said,
"There you go,
I'll give
Eli.
you a plug, Eli."
I need to follow him. Some of these young bucks, I'm losing
Eli's
track
wanting
of.
he's going to come compete at Pasadena at Cody Emerson at that one down there. And then obviously the UBF and being able to put the bullfights on right there in the Cowtown Coliseum, which is the home of the very first indoor rodeo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every Sunday.
And all the history with the building and people wanting to come in, and that group of people, which is a lot of tourists, as we both know in Fort Worth, that are getting to see freestyle bullfighting for the first time, what a great spot to be able to see it because they're right on top of it. They get to feel the energy. A lot of young guys are getting the opportunity to show what they've got. And by them being successful there is going to open doors for opening up to some rodeos to go to also.
Yeah, that I guess looking at bullfighting, I sometimes compare it to bareback riding. I feel that like when my dad passed, he was getting his doctorate at A&M, and he was writing his thesis on why there was a decline in the number of bareback riders. Whereas events like bronc riding, for instance, there are so many bronc saddles at even these little rodeos.
Right.
It doesn't seem like there's as many bareback riggins. And years ago, I was fearful that would also be the case in bullfighting, because there's guys out there that are like training and finding and getting there. Like bullfighting is like you got to walk bow-legged because you got a big set of nuts. Like it's like you step out there with a big crossbred, like that's a different human.
It is.
And so I was fearful that there would be fewer and fewer, but it seems like, and maybe it's because of UBF and BFO and some of these organizations, it seems like there's young guys like your man Eli coming up that like, hey, they're ready to play the game.
They are. But what is of the utmost importance that guys haven't given thought to is there's a lot of work to it. And in order to compete in those bullfights, to go run for 70 seconds, and you're not running on flat ground, you're out there and depending on the arenas, depending on the weather conditions, you know, I mean, you can be going through a whole lot. It's of the utmost importance. And I tell guys when they're getting ready to come to our schools, I don't need you to bench press 300 pounds, but I need you to be able to go run 6 or 7 miles right now.
Yep.
Because
Yes,
this
sir.
is what's got to stay strong.
Yes, sir.
Because this can tell me I want to go. If these won't roll to get me there, it doesn't matter how much this tells me I should and this tells me I need to. I can't get there. My wheels are of the utmost importance. I got to be strong in my legs, and then the rest will take care of itself.
I got a young kid here that he's been fighting, and I told him he's been losing some weight.
Right.
And weighed like 220 when he started. I was like, man, I need you at $160. And, you know, like, I was like, that's ideal.
You're putting him on crunch time.
Well, I told him, I said, if you want to go to the top,
Right.
like you eventually need to get there. Not tomorrow.
Sure.
But I told him, because he's going to go to one of Frank's schools in a month.
Okay.
And I said, man, try to get your cardio. And he's down to like 200 now.
Right.
He's already lost 20. He's
That's
committed.
awesome.
And I said, get your cardio down. I said, but when eventually one of them hooks you at that school, just know that right now you still got a weighted vest on. So imagine taking off a 15-pound weighted vest. And so, because if you can get down to that 185 at least, you know, but I told him, I was like, you need to, because he was kind of like a bodybuilder,
Right.
power lifter
Sure.
mentality.
Yep.
And I said, you need to be more of a agility
Right.
mentality.
Yeah, you've got to have the wheels. The best thing I found that helped me in my later last years was I've got a good friend, Duncan Dickinson, that's from Chicago, that is an avid bike rider. Duncan got me riding a bike, and I got to where I would ride from Shamrock. We lived in Twitty, 6-7 miles north of Shamrock there. I'd ride from the house all the way to the hospital at the other end of town of Shamrock and back. It was a little over 20 miles. And I got to where I could do it in about an hour and 15 minutes.
You bet.
And it was uphill, downhill, wind in your face, wind to your
bet.
back, you know, the different things, much better than a stationary bike. Plus just being outside, getting to enjoy the father, what's out there. Looking at some cows, looking at some bulls, looking at you had to cross the Red River there in Shamrock, in Twitty. The Red River runs, getting to cross over the Red River. Once you're down in Texas, Bob Wills is still the king.
Yeah. Well, we're about to go fight some bulls, so we'll definitely get to talk more about that. But before we do, I want to wrap up with your cap here that you gave me. super cool brand. It says it's your brand, and it's got a square and then an arrow pointing up.
Right. So it's square, which means so square up is what it's all about. That brand's been ours for 30 plus years. And I always, at our bullfighting schools, I tell guys, you know, you got to get squared up. A bull moves like a horse on a lead, for those that are just watching the podcast and not familiar with things. So when he's on a lead, if I can get him on a left lead, he can't turn to the right without being able to downshift, get the right leg out in front of him to pivot off of. If he tries turning to the right this way on a sharp right turn with that right leg underneath him, he's going down. Mm-hmm. So being squared up, I learned the hop from Wick, and then you hop across this one way. Well, then I throw that jab step. I get that bull to commit to getting the weight on that leg over here, and then I misdirection, like running the trap play in football. Mm-hmm. You know, they would always have that running back, open up here, and then back against the grain. It's the same thing. Open up over here, get the weight here, come back against the grain. And so square up, and then with my walk with the Father, and as you think about things, squaring up in football, playing basketball, I got to get square to my shot. If I'm roping, I need to be squared up, rope those horns, come around the corner heeling. I want to be squared up to my target.
Well, it also means, and I'm sure you've never used it in this way, it's verbiage to if you were going to fight someone.
Right. Square up. And it is. Well, and like I said, fighting bulls, but also our Lord wants us to square up. He wants us to square up for people. And the biggest thing, squaring up meaning being straight up with people, not telling lies, not being right with our brothers and sisters. And one of the big things that cowboys, all we ever hear is cowboy up, toughen up, suck it up, get back up, how hard we need to be. And that's against everything that the Father wants from us, because he wants us to soften up. He wants us to be an encourager. He wants us to lift somebody up. He wants us to be able to look across and see some sad eyes and say, what's going on? Mm-hmm. You know, and not that you have to have the answers. It's amazing how many times that you can say, hey, what's going on? And it gives them the opportunity to open up and share something. And we just got to sit there and listen and be there to maybe give them a hug at the end. And it's amazed me how often that you don't have to have the answer, and somewhere in what they said, they'll give themselves the answer. Mm-hmm. They just needed to be able to talk to somebody
about it. Yeah.
You know?
Do you sell these?
I give that's my tithe right there.
Gotcha. I just I didn't know if we needed
and the biggest thing I would ask is the square up for life. I've got a Rob Smets Facebook page. I've got a personal page, but there's a Rob Smets pages page. 6:30 in the mornings, I share a little message of what the Father puts on my heart in the mornings, and come join us. Come check it out.
I've seen those before. That's super neat.
So,
well, thank you for coming on. And I wasn't trying to overstep when I asked about teaching this young guy. I knew, I was like, man, he would enjoy that.
Oh, it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
That whole team out there should be having everything ready, and we got some lunch going to show up. And anyway, well, I usually we end with life advice, but that's kind of what Square Up was. So
okay.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So one more quick thing, then I'll give them one good thing. When I got saved, I got told, I've got a scripture for you, Rob. And many people always ask me over the years what prayer I was praying over bull riders when bull riders went down, and they would see me praying. Justin Monson, that worked with the PBR forever, said, Rob, I've got a scripture for you, and it's Jeremiah 33:3. Call unto me, and I will answer thee, and show thee great and mighty things thou didn't know. And so when I would go to pray over a bull rider, I would say, Dear Heavenly Father, I'm coming to you by your word of Jeremiah 33:3.
Dang.
We're calling unto you right now, because I don't know how bad. He's out. He's out. I don't know how bad he is. But Father, you are the ultimate, the great healer, and you do know what it is. We're asking for great and mighty things right here and right now for you to touch this young man's life, and please heal him.
Dang.
And that was what I
awesome.
would pray.
That sounds powerful, especially when you're responding straight to a call to prayer. Here I am.
There it is.
Yeah. Cool. Well, good deal. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening, and look out for Rob. You still do a lot of announcing.
I do some announcing. I just got done. I was at Gilroy, California, the first week of August. We was down at James Pierce's bull riding in Thibodaux, Louisiana last weekend, or the weekend before, and then just got done this weekend. So staying busy.
Staying busy. Y'all look out for him at those rodeos. We're on to the next one. Pow,
We
pow.
had the Chase Quine Memorial in Midland last weekend.
You've been staying busy.
Busy.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you fitting us in.
Thanks for having me. Getting
Yes,
to be
sir.
with Dale Brisby. How does it get any better?
Yeah, world's greatest bull rider. I'm sure.
Look at him. World's greatest bull rider standing on one and a girl hanging off his leg.
You recognize that bull too, I'm sure.
Yes, I do recognize the bull.
Pow, pow.
Greatest bull riders of all times, and I'd been asked that throughout my career. And in 2006, I got inducted into the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame along with Jim Sharp. So and while I was standing up there that day giving my speech, and I said, over the years, I've been asked who was the greatest bull rider that I'd ever seen. And I said, the greatest bull rider I've ever seen sits behind me today. And I said, he's got gold buckles and could have more gold buckles. The problem was he rode bulls and made them look so easy, rode them with such finesse that there were days he won third and fourth on bulls that other guys would win the rodeo on because they would say the bull didn't have his day. The bull had his day. Jim just rode him and controlled it. And I said, now, before you call the short, squatty guy in Mesquite, Texas, and before you start calling Donnie, don't get me wrong. There's a reason Donnie Gay has 8 gold buckles. It's because Donnie Gay would pull that rope just a little bit tighter, run it down that finger just a little bit stronger, and would not give up. I mean, do not bet against Donnie Gay. Do not tell him you're betting against him, because he'll do everything in his power to prove to you that he's the greatest. And he's there. But I just mean Jim Razor would have more gold buckles if he just didn't stay in such control.
Yeah, Jim has, so I got some bucking horses too, and he's been on the podcast twice. Jim has, and he comes through here all the time, and his boy Will is learning to ride broncs. So Jim's been at maybe 5 of our practices over the last couple of months, and it's so cool to have him around. He is the nicest guy in rodeo.
Yeah,
and he is no BS though. Like, this one kid got on a bull at the house and just kind of looked off after about 5 seconds. And we were like, Jim, what do you think? And he's like, it looks like he quit. Just like didn't sugarcoat it, nothing.
No.
And oh man, it's so funny. But I guess, outside of me being the GOAT, I guess a lot of times I do lean towards JB. Not having watched a lot of Jim's rides, number one, but I think it's hard not to respect like JB calling for that bull as many times
time
as he
after
did.
time, without a doubt.
And getting dubbed the Dragon Slayer.
Yep.
And just having that mentality of, I want to get on the rank. I'm going to pick the rankest bull.
Yep.
I know I can maybe pick this bull and win me a smooth, few 10, 20, 30,000 tonight. But I want to get on the rankest bull you got. You can come on in, Jordan. I want to get on the rankest bull you got.
Yep.
And like the respect I have for that mentality just.
And I do. And I mean, like I said, over the years, golly, I've got to watch some great things. I was there. I saw Donnie, like I said, I snuck in the Cow Palace that night. I saw Donnie ride Oscar. I fought bulls at El Paso the year Lyle Sankey rode 3 7s of Harry's. I was fighting bulls. I fought bulls 5 of the 7 times Lane got on Red Rock. I was with Lane that night in Reading when he rode him the first time. I saw not a successful ride, but tough meet head to head with Bodacious.
Right.
Was there when Chris Shivers rode Little Yellow Jacket, Michael Gaffney, I really liked best, maybe the greatest bucking bull, my thoughts are, was Little Yellow Jacket. And when I really liked watching him was the day after they rode him, the next trip. That bull came back with a vengeance.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. The next trip, that guy, he was rank. That bull loved the game.
See, it's so neat to, I mean, it's your guys' opinions of, especially being the bullfighter, getting a front row to all those, is holds so much weight because you did get to see these guys. You got to watch their mentality. You got to watch them win,
Right.
lose, come back from a loss, and then you got to see the bulls. That's why I love getting to sit down and visit with you guys. Like, and then hearing the mentality of Jim though, and that's why I think getting to put his name, you know, it's almost a tie. You put 3 or 4 of them guys.
Oh
up
yeah,
there,
no doubt.
and
They're right
Jim
there.
is one of them because it's like you just get to watch. Like he would have picked that bull.
Yep.
Like he would have been fine. He would have picked Bushwhacker. He'd be like, yeah, I'll get on him.
Yeah.
And eat a hot dog right before,
Right.
from what I've heard.
Oh yeah. You know, and Tough, you gotta put
Oh, my
Tough in the
gosh,
middle of
yeah.
that mix. Adriano,
Yep.
you know, I mean,
now you got guys
and then
like
you've got
Stetson.
Lemmy. I mean, you've got a whole group now, but old school that had this,
Yes,
that
sir.
really pounded.
I like how you do tap your chest. I remember like when me and you, right after Weston started, me and him were in the practice pen when he started.
Right.
And that's a whole nother story. But then you and I crossed paths at the NFR and you were like, yeah, I like Weston because he's got this right
got-
here.
huh?
And you pointed at your chest that same way.
And that's what you got to have this, because you can have all the talent, you can have all the want to in the world, but only God gives this.
Right.
And you got to have this, or you're just howling at the moon.
Right. Yeah, then you're just there for the story.
Yeah.
Or the Facebook post, and that's not a good enough reason.
No.
Cool. Did we miss anything else?
Get your pow pow in and let's roll.
We'll go buck some bulls.